So I'm going to be doing a series of videos on how to get a job, and these are going to cover today's video, which is how to write a resume, and then we're going to go through how to write a cover letter, how to apply for the jobs, phone interviews with HR, phone interviews with hiring managers, how to dress and do an in-person interview, and then how to accept an offer and kind of the winding down process after you find a job. So starting off, we're going to do resumes. I typically review quite a few resumes for both students, friends, professionals, just people I know in general. And so the appearance of the resume is very important. At first glance, you pick up the resume as a hiring manager. You want it to be neat, not too compact, but not sparse with hardly anything in it. And you want to easily be able to find the sections you're looking for. So typically when I pick up a resume as someone who's actually going to be employing, hiring somebody, giving it a look over for someone that's going to be hiring in our organization, really the first thing I do is I look at the top or the education section, wherever that's at. I want to see what your degree's in. If there's a GPA, did you do well? What classes did you take? What relevance? Course material have you looked at? That type of stuff. And then I'll jump through quickly and just kind of glance at the companies. So where did you work? I just glance at the bullets quickly, and then I go right down to the bottom looking for skills. I want to see what languages you know for programming. I want to see other skills you have, language skills. Typically it's mainly programming, but that's what we typically look for. And again, this maybe take, anywhere from 10, 20 seconds if it's a terrible resume, and I'll just be like, not a big fan. Just throw it away basically and give feedback to the hiring manager. Or I will actually spend more time on it if it looks interesting. So if it looks like you have good schools, I glance, the work experience is relevant, and you have good skills, and I'll dive in deeper to the bullet points and actually read what you wrote in more detail. So instead of just skimming the first bullet or two, I'll actually start reading the entire thing. I'm really interested. So when you write the resume, again, it's important that it's neat. It's not too compact. It's not too sparse. You want kind of an even layout, and it's easy for the reviewer to find sections. And again, for students, I'd lay it out with education on top, then have your work experience in the middle, and then skills on the bottom. I would avoid filling the resume with irrelevant material. And I know a lot of schools and counselors will tell you this, especially business schools, which I disagree with, which is, put in those volunteer experience and put in your interests and your hobbies. And they always try to have you cram in this personal portion. And again, it's good to do maybe if you don't have enough actual work experience or your education's not very deep and meaningful to you. Then it might be a good idea to put all these different experiences that aren't really work related into the resume. But again, I would avoid them if possible. So example, if you were maybe a leader of a finance club at school, that's relevant. You might put that in somewhere in the resume. But saying I volunteered at, XYZ charity every Saturday for 3 months, that's great, you're a good person, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'm reviewing the resume, and it's just wasting space. So again, I would stick to relevant material if possible. I'd be consistent. You'd be surprised when I'm reviewing the resume and you casually just going through it and you see that, half the sentences have periods, half of them don't, or even words that are mistyped. So typos is one example, but something that people don't realize is if you spell macroeconomic as one word and lowercase in one section, in another section you have a dash between macro and economic, it doesn't mean you're bad or anything, but it just looks to me that you didn't put very much detail and attention and time into that resume. And so it kind of reflects poorly on you that you might not do the best job as an actual candidate where detail is needed as an employee kind of skill. So again, being consistent throughout the entire resume, the formatting, the spelling, the colors, the fonts, everything needs to be consistent. The length should be about a page for people with, I'd say, 5 years or less experience, and even maybe more than that. If you're seasoned and you've been working for quite a while, feel free to definitely clear 2 pages. But maybe Further than that's a little too much, especially for just getting that resume out there and kind of showcasing what you've done to get your foot in the door for that interview. Again, the resume is just to get your foot in the door, to show your overall skill set. To really explain in detail what you've done on these projects, that's the interview portion. So the resume is more or less just a marketing flyer or campaign to get you in the door. And then you want to be able to talk on those bullet points and expand onto the details of projects and skills and everything else you've done. So again, I try to keep them as short as possible, relevant information. The overall resume should have a theme to it. So what I consider doing is building a CV first, which a CV is typically everything that you've done in your entire history. You'll see academics have these very long CVs because of everything they've done. With a resume, basically what I do is write the CV first, put all the relevant bullet points that you've done, all the skills, all the jobs, education and everything. I build it out so it's complete. And then to do resumes, I'd pick a specific job that you're applying for. So if you're applying for, say, an investment banking position, you'd want to make sure you have your business classes on there, your finance, your accounting, your Excel skills. But then maybe if you decide you're going to apply for, I don't know, a quantitative marketing analytics position, then you might put on there more of your math courses, your statistics and forecasting and econometrics courses. Maybe you put SAS and Stata, things that fit when you have a little bit more detailed resume for that position. So again, CV and resume, CV covers everything. Resume should be a shorter version, and it makes it easy to take things from your CV and build a resume specific for a position. So back to it again, the theme should be consistent. If you write a resume and you're applying for an investment banking job, it should be investment banking focused. If you're applying for a marketing analytics job, it should be marketing analytics focused. It's hard for someone to read a resume and you start reading it and you have like really good relevance in one experience, or like the education looks great and then you have a job experience that's not relevant. And so then I start wondering, is this person, right for the job? Do they really have the experience? And a lot of times the candidates have experience, but they just didn't pick the most relevant topics. They wrote one resume, they applied to both, say, investment banking, accounting, marketing analytics, quantitative finance. They applied to everything. And it's one resume, but it's not focused to one topic. So in general, I'm seeing part of the investment banking, part of the quantitative finance, part of the marketing. And at the end of the day, I'm just confused on, really what do you want to do? You don't seem focused. So typically I'll just pass your resume to the trash can and not look at it. So again, try to focus it as much as possible. When you're new, you don't have a lot of experience, you can't fill that resume as well. You'll find ways, creative ways to kind of interweave the theme of like you want to be an investment banker, or you want to be, a psychologist, or you want to do something. You need to have a focused theme when the resume reviewer reads it, that they get that impression that's what you want to do for a career and for a living here. So down into the details now that you have kind of the content laid out is actually writing the bullet points. And you want to write it in an action, context, results kind of format. So this is what I did, this is the context I did it in, and this is what it resulted in. And I know a lot of times it's hard to get that results section. Like I built a website for a $2 million revenue company, which resulted in web traffic increase of 25% monthly. Like that's a good example, but sometimes it's more like I wrote this large documentation for an investment project for a large client in, say, Southeast Asia, but you don't know the results, right? Sometimes it's just written for a project or a small piece of it. It's hard to get the results. Try to tie it in, but at least make sure you have the action and the context and make it relevant to what you're applying for. So building a website from scratch at this company, or putting together the due diligence for an underwriting project for a loan or something for this type of, like an auto client or someone that works in medicine or something. Put something in there so they at least understand the context, how it was a part of a bigger project, or maybe you were the project. So kind of have that context though of action, context, results for each bullet point if possible. And then to wrap kind of this how to write a resume up, as an employer, again, like I said, it's a quick look. I'm busy. Maybe I have 10, 20 of these resumes on my desk. Again, I'm going to look at education, review that quickly. I'm going to look at all your work experience. That should be the main portion. If you've been working for a while, your education should be quite a big portion if you're just graduating. And the order that you put things in are important, because when I review it, I start at the top. I look at education. I look at the relevant topics if that's part of the education. I look at the experience. I'll look at the first bullets typically of each job. So if you have 4 bullets in a job, I'm probably only going to read the first one of maybe the first few jobs that you have, and then I'm going to jump right to the skills. And the skills is going to be, the language skills, the programming, the computer, and then I'm done. So if the resume is interesting, I'll go back and read more bullets. I really want to learn who you are and see if you're a good fit. But if your resume, I read through it and the education's good, the work experience, the bullets are mistyped, there's formatting issues, the experience isn't consistent, it doesn't seem relevant, I'm not going to waste my time. I have other stuff to do at work. I have, more resumes to look at, so you're not going to get a chance. That's typically what happens with HR as well as hiring managers. So that's the perspective of me as kind of an employer. But again, on the perspective of a networking contact, if you email me and say, hey, I need help with this resume, I don't review it like that. It's tempting to, I'm busy, I have stuff to do, but I really want to help people with their resumes. So when you do that, I'll actually sit down and look through everything we've talked about. I first glance at it and think, is it easy to read? Would I actually hire you? Based on the formatting. And then I start digging through. I'll actually read all your education experience. I'll read all your bullets, and I'll finish reading through the skills, and I'll think, where was it inconsistent? Do they have bullets at every point? Was the spelling correct? Was the grammar, okay? Does it look like they had somebody review this before you submitted it? And that's kind of what I'm looking for. And then I'll go through the bullets and look for the action, context, results, and try to make sure it works together and make sure you have a consistent theme. As long as you have all that in a resume, it's great for an application because employers look at it, they read it, and it makes sense to them as a human reading it. You also have to realize this resume is going to probably go through computer systems at job sites, recruiting companies, all the different organizations you might apply to have some system typically that feeds through here, and they just need to see the relevant skills. So when you write this, make sure you have context in the resume. Make sure that if you're applying for an investment banking job, you have different terms they use in the industry in the resume that are investment banking related. So if it says, they're looking for Excel skills, you better have Excel in that resume, because typically the first person to review your resume is a computer or an HR person. And the HR person might not understand your technical jargon. And so they're going to look at a list the hiring manager gave them that says, they need to be able to value equities and use time value of money. So time value of money better be on there. Or they might say, SAS is a required programming language, so it better be listed somewhere on the resume so it matches. And again, when you apply for jobs, you want to make sure that the application job listing that you see matches your resume somewhat. So somebody that's either a computer or an actual person can look at it, quickly match it, say, yes, this person looks relevant, and pass it to a hiring manager, who then you can discuss actual topics and relevance to the job, which is kind of that second step, is getting past the computer and HR and then into the actual hiring position. So that's how I review resumes. I would always rank them, again, in order of importance. Put your most important bullet first, and then rank them by importance. And then again, I'd always rank your resume in chronological order, with the most relevant and recent education at the top, and again, the most relevant and recent jobs at the top. And then inside of each of those, list the skills that are most relevant, because typically someone's only going to read a few lines or a few words before they skip to another section. So that's my advice for writing a resume. I will post another video with a few examples of resumes, and it will kind of cover some of these topics that we've been talking about. So I hope you guys find this helpful. Please leave feedback, subscribe to my videos for more on this series of how to find a job, and let me know what you think.